Perfect. Hi, Katja.
Hey there. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, in Katja, just to be clear, as we're going through here, it's fine to be off mute for you the entire time. You know, it's just we'll go on mute just in case we have some background noises. But you'll be fine. So I know you're in a quiet environment. But tell us where you are. Are you located right now?
Yeah, I'm in Berlin. Let's
in Berlin, yes.
The environment will remain quiet because we're connected to a co-working space for startups. So let's hope for the best.
Yes, I have a good friend in Berlin. He just had a newborn baby introduced to his household, so he's quite busy right now. So yeah, but yeah, those things that I was just thinking about, those life disruptors. You know, that can be wonderful and also challenging at times. You know, because when you think about a new baby coming into our lives, I mean, it's like, we're all excited, but then we don't get sleep for the next 6 months, right?
Yeah, it's always something like beyond our control then as well, right? So
Yeah.
good to challenge ourselves sometimes.
Right. It's good. It's good. So you mentioned it's quite cold in Berlin.
Yeah, it's getting less than 10 degrees. And for me, 10 degrees, it's bearable, but everything that's less, and I'm speaking about Celsius, everything that's less is not really for me. So I'll escape to Tel Aviv on Friday.
Ah, how nice. So the weather seems to have sneaked up on us quite fast here at the end of the year. So
yeah, I need to get out of Dodge. I need to go to Puerto Vallarta here soon.
And go skiing or snowboarding, as it seems.
Yeah, I call something mountain and sea. I do career coaching, mountain and sea health advocacy, mountain and sea career coaching, all kinds of fun. But I typically live here in Colorado half the year and the other half the year in Puerto Vallarta. So it's going to be nice and warm down there.
Yeah.
But they have had earthquakes and hurricanes recently, so I'm not sure that's great.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, I have one of our colleagues is down there, Pili Martinez, and she was in Mexico. She's in Mexico City, so that she's been experiencing those earthquakes firsthand for sure.
That's really scary.
Yeah.
So do you have a second home in Tel Aviv or office you can work out of there?
Yeah, so I'm renting a space there, also connected to the startup ecosystem, because there's also a lot of investment in Tel Aviv now, a lot of early stage and startups and also scale ups. So it's like a great vibe. I love working from there as well.
Yeah, that's the nice thing about modern life is that we can work around the globe.
I thought so. I got so used to it during COVID to work from different places. And now recently I figured out that there are so many face-to-face events in Berlin. And now it's again this like fear of missing out if you're like in the wrong place at the wrong time. Because people start inviting each other. There's a lot of face-to-face events. So maybe I have to make some tough decisions soon.
Yeah, it is true. I mean, it's good to have a balance. I think that when we think about the being on Zoom and so forth, we can jump to different places quite quickly. And and for instance, I mean, just having you on the call right now. I mean, you're in Germany, and a lot of us are based in the U.S., and so we have that opportunity. But then there's other types of things right now, or I'm if you can see my background, I'm at a conference in Austin right now where I'm seeing people face to face, and it's quite refreshing as well. So it's just another facet of our lives, I think.
Yeah. Totally agree. I also I went to an award show on the weekend in the south of Germany. It's called the Digital Female Leader Award. And, I was also talking about Wavemakers just in some casual conversations to people. And I saw like some of the women's eyes like really lighting up and saying like, oh, this is like really for people like me. And I think such a like emotional reaction I haven't really seen on Zoom before. So I totally agree that sometimes like face to face is it's a different animal, and it was also really nice to see such a personal reaction to what you do.
Right. For sure. Yeah. Well, great. And so the one thing, I mean, you were talking about getting to warm weather. I'm here in Austin, it's quite nice this time of year. But just like in most of these warm places, they seem to overdo it with the air conditioning. So it's like I'm so wearing a jacket, even though it's very hot outside. It's quite strange. But
Why is it they have to make it so cold in air conditioning? I don't get it.
yeah.
And why, Wendy, do you guys do the trainings in cold air conditioned conference rooms? That's something, Wendy, that you have for training?
Oh, you mean like, yeah, I mean, I'm like, I don't want that. Trust me.
Yeah, I know, but like, it just seems like it's always the orientation or the training that's happening in a cold conference room.
Yeah,
Anytime you go to a conference, you have to bring the winter coat, the blankets, the
Yeah.
hot coffee.
I think it keeps everybody
Bring
awake.
so many layers.
Yeah, that's what they're
Yeah.
trying to do. Now, Sumit, on the other hand, who just joined us, he doesn't know anything about being freezing cold all the time, right, Sumit?
Isn't 60 degrees freezing cold?
To me, it is Fahrenheit. Yes.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting topic, and I know we'll also talk a little bit about like gender stereotypes later today. And apparently in Israel, there's a public debate at the moment because a female leader of a political party is asking to make the air conditioning, I think, 2 degrees higher in public transport and everywhere, because she claims that it is made for men in suit and not for females or female clothing. So
interesting.
it's a very interesting debate there now, apparently.
Yes.
But that's actually an interesting point. And sorry.
No, I was just gonna say in Germany we don't even have aircon, so I'm not even part of that conversation.
Oh, we don't have it in Colorado really either. What were you going to say, Sumit? Oh, it's
I was
10
saying I
o'clock.
was reading a very interesting book called Invisible Women, which had a lot of insights on gender equality and how the world is essentially designed for men by men. And they're very obvious things that one would hardly even think about.
Yes, we should discuss.
Like pocket in my clothes.
That's one of them, yeah.
We should discuss that during our session here. Let me go ahead and start the live stream, and then we'll get things kicked off. Here we go.
All right. Well, welcome everyone to the People Strategy Forum. We're so happy to have you today. We do this every Wednesday and so excited. We've been doing this for several years now. Just want to introduce ourselves. My name is Shar Miller. I am a people strategist, and I've worked in human resources for many, many years. And oh yes, I also want to mention, here's our title screen: engage and energize, evaluate, and elevate your employees and your company. So I just needed to say that part. So again, I'm Shar Miller, people strategist. I've been working with Sam Reeve and also this team here, this lovely team of my colleagues. Today joining us, we have Jules, who's our moderator, and no, she's not here. I'm the moderator, so she's not here. We also have Howard, and Howard's not here either, but he usually is a compensation reward strategist. Today we have Sumit with us. He's a people strategist, and Wendy Graham, also a people strategist. Delight working with these two professionals in the talent management and strategy space and organizational effectiveness space. And last but not least is Sam Reeves. He is our rewards strategist. He's also the CEO and founder of Comp Team, and also has been the backbone of the People Strategy Forums, as well as being your host of the People Strategy Forums. So I would like to introduce our guest speaker today. Katja Kolmetz is the founder of Wave Makers. And so as you can see from her information here, she is a co-founder of the experience design studio Human Deluxe. That's interesting. And digital self-empowerment platform. and helping with leadership and also breaking out of those outdated leadership stereotypes. I think that is fantastic. So also about diversity and authentic leadership, and also has been very passionate about her startup as well as a career coach. So welcome, Katja. We are so happy to have you today and excited to hear all about you. So can you tell us about your background and what you bring to employers and professionals?
Sure. Thank you so much for inviting me and for the nice intro. Yeah, happy to share a little bit more about my background. I'm based in Berlin, founder of Wave Makers that you already introduced a little bit. And, you know, my own personal and professional path has kind of led up to founding a company, because I always worked in large organizations like Philips and SAP. And I had a hard time finding my own leadership path. Although I had a great career, I was promoted, amazing teams, amazing positions, but I never felt like I could bring my whole self to work. But I always changed some parts of myself in order to fit in, especially working in male-dominated environments. And that was the moment when I started to design a female leadership program that would help other women be authentic leaders. And then I realized, hey, it's not even just about gender, but there are many people that don't identify with our current leadership norms because they think, actually, I would do things a little bit differently, or I'm different. And that's why at Wave Makers, our mission is really to democratize access to leadership education, so everyone can educate themselves and grow personally and professionally with a leadership mindset and skill set, and also do that in an authentic way without compromising your identity, who you are and where you come from. So that's what we are doing at Wave Makers with the digital leadership program and a ton of other initiatives. And yeah, happy to share more and have these conversations with you today.
I have to say, I love this. You know, it reminds me of the days when I first got into HR and I had to go out and buy all my sport coats, you know, that look like men's coats, but or jackets. But mine were a little bit more like, you know, the golf tournament, the bright greens, and but yet it was masculine looking with the shoulder pads, you know. And then I remember in my young professional days having to learn how to shake a man's hand. You know, you got to have some strength there. You can't just walk in with your little girly handshake. You got to shake it correctly. And I remember getting that coaching. The other example as I have is when I was a young HR professional, my HR manager says to me, you know, Shar, you need a power do. I said, what the heck is a power do? And he opened up an HR magazine and started flipping through, and all of them were really short, manly looking haircuts. And he said that my hair was too long to be an HR person. And he said, you should chop your hair off. And I never chopped my hair off ever since that commentary. So anyway, lots of experience where as a young HR female, had to learn how to do that. I know Sumit's going to have some commentary from more of the other judgments and stereotypes here in the conversation as well. So this is very fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see how things have changed and that trend. But one thing, I just really quick before we get started, I'd just like to dive into a little bit more about Wave Makers. And you mentioned that it's a digital self-empowerment platform. So what does that look like, Katja?
Yes, so you know, for us, self-empowerment and leadership are very closely related. Because we believe that leadership is not a job title, right? I mean, you can have a leadership title and you're not necessarily demonstrating leadership qualities on a daily basis, but you can also be on any other level of the organization or in your community and actually be a leader or demonstrate leadership in your daily lives. And so what we're doing at Wave Makers is that we are bringing together young professionals that are becoming leaders, growing as leaders, regardless of their current position, online. So we already work now with people from more than 30 different countries that are, you know, coming together in a safe space where they don't only get knowledge about leadership, but also get to practice their skills and interact with other peers that are in similar situation. So that's what our learning and community platform Wavemakers is about.
That's great. So you mentioned that the people that are using your services and on your platform are from all over the globe, different locations. And so do you find that leadership is quite different in different locations? I mean, what's your experience there?
Yes and no. So management certainly is. And I think there's a difference between management and leadership, but there are different management practices for sure, and people management practices, because there is a lot of cultural influence, right? So for example, in Germany, there's a lot of individualism in our society. And in other countries, it's more about community. So that also has different implications for how we communicate with each other. When it comes to leadership, I would say there's actually a lot of common ground, because leadership basically means that you are taking responsibility for something that's bigger than yourself, right? And it has to do a lot with being self-aware of your strengths and weaknesses and limitations and emotions and all of that, and also finding ways to effectively communicate with others and inspire others and make big things happen together. And I would say this idea of leadership, there we have a lot of common ground all over the world. And when it comes to the execution, we do see some differences.
Well, one of the big things, and we're talking about two big things today, and as a response to leadership, having that diverse and then also authentic. And so can you tell us, I mean, and having these in the same category is very meaningful. Can you tell us why just diverse and authentic are in the same approach and how we're going to have our discussion today?
Yeah. So I think we have a lot of great role models for authentic leadership. Like I'm thinking of Steve Jobs, or Simon Sinek is also talking a lot about authentic leadership. And these are great role models that are inspiring a lot of people by being authentic, right? Authentic leaders. But they are also white males. And we see also through our work at Wavemakers that many leaders or emerging leaders that are female or different from the current leadership norm due to different diversity features. It's sometimes more difficult to be an authentic leader because you have some hesitation to bring your whole self to work.
That's true. And I think that one of the big important pieces of just authenticity and diverse is something that we experience just here on the forum itself. I mean, of course, you are from Europe. Sumit is from India. And Shar has a lot of experience as being a small business owner and also have ran HR systems. And Wendy knows a lot of different things about training and development, and she has a lot of diverse interests in herself. And so when we come together as a team or as a group and having these discussions, we're coming from different backgrounds and different experiences in our life. And to the extent that we can be authentic about that experience, those experiences, we can bring in a lot of great knowledge that can be found as be very innovative. Come up with better brainstorming sessions. I mean, there's a lot of benefits, right?
Sam, this is an amazing analogy, I would say, because if we were, the board of a company, let's say, we would make important decisions together. What would be most important that all of us feel safe to now communicate our own perspective of the world, whatever decision needs to be done, right? And then if we manage that correctly as a team, we will be able to come up with innovative solutions, think out of the box, as you said. We will brainstorm, we will make a decision together on this important topic because we are all different and we look at the world in different ways. Now, the thing is, for example, in my home country, Germany, we have now a new law about, it's a so-called quota for women, how many women need to be on the board, at least 50%. And this is an important milestone for sure, but this is only really meaningful if these women also feel safe to really express their diverse perspective, right? And it's only a quota about men and women. And we already said there are also other diversity dimensions, right, that should be equally regarded. So this is difficult. And I think you're totally right about the power of diversity, but that we also need to create environments where people feel confident and safe to express this unique perspective, because only then we can really benefit from diversity.
So why do you think people feel that they can't feel safe or threatened to say something? What do you think the fear is in that environment? Yeah.
So what we see a lot also in our wave makers community, and they are all, early mid-career professionals that are either women or underrepresented groups when it comes to leadership. And what we see a lot is two different things. So on the one hand, we see a lot of insecurities in terms of like, do I really belong? Do I fit? Like, will people laugh about me if I say is it a stupid idea that I'm having? A lot of insecurities, also imposter syndrome, thinking that they are only in that place because they were lucky and don't acknowledge their own accomplishments to get there. So there's like an inner perspective of insecurities and lack of confidence. But then there's also the external perspective of actually facing some microaggressions at work, by a certain person always being asked to take notes during the meeting, or always asked to, can you go get us a coffee? These kind of things that happen that of course then also shape the everyday reality and maybe put the emerging leader into a position that they actually don't want to be in, and also increase the level of insecurity. So those are the two main aspects that we observe.
So I was just going to say something, Wendy, because I know you have a very unique perspective on, you work with a lot of CEO teams when you're doing training sessions and things like this. And I imagine when you first walk into a group, Wendy, that you need to create an environment or ensure an environment of psychological safety, how do you lay that framework in your sessions to make people feel safe?
Well, that was what I was going to ask, was how do you know that there is that safety? Like, what are the indicators? Because even if you do a good job, so of course we always joke like, okay, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, and here we are in our classroom, and what happens here. But you can't, even if you just say like, this has to be a safe place, this has to be, we're humans and we still judge, and we still have like our life experience that causes us to have stereotypes and causes us to have ideas about each other. So how do we actually know that we've created an environment where people can be themselves? Like, I was thinking, I know that I can be myself with Comp Team, but how does Sam know that as a leader, that he's created a space where people feel that way?
Mm-hmm. Two thoughts come to my mind. The first one being, we have to look at the outcomes. So, is everyone in the room making contributions? Does everyone have time to talk? What are these contributions like? So there we can definitely observe signs and signals if everyone is talking and if they're also speaking from their own perspective or just repeating something else. So this is something that we can pay attention to and also observe everyone's behavior in the room. But then a second thought that came to my mind is, I think there's a big difference between saying, hey, this is a safe space, and actually making it a safe space. You know what I mean? Because even if we tell someone, like, for example, be confident, just do it. Like, it doesn't necessarily translate into the outcome that we're hoping for. And it's the little things that we can do. So we can do, for example, we can ask questions that make people feel vulnerable. Everyone in the room. And this is something that usually builds some common ground and also emotional connection between people, and they have to open up and share more about who they are, maybe also outside of work, to shake these structures or perceived structures a little bit up. And something else that we can also do that we need to watch out for, I already talked about looking like if everyone has a say, if everyone is contributing to the conversation, but also calling out, micro moments where maybe things are going wrong. Maybe there is just a person that is constantly interrupting someone else, things like that. So this is something where we also see a lot of data that, for example, women are interrupted more often than men in meetings. So these are things we can just have, really pay close attention to, and also call them out in the moment that they happen, right? Not in a judgmental way, because usually they happen it's subconscious, right? It doesn't happen with a bad intent. But these things happen because we're used to certain communication styles and certain things. And when they happen, we should call them out.
So, Sumit, in your experience in dealing with a multitude of different cultures, what's the way that you see some good techniques of building that psychological safety in these environments?
That's an interesting point, Sam. And in my part of the world, what I see is, and research backs this up as well, one of the biggest fears that people have is the fear of being ridiculed or being laughed at. So from an early age, we're conditioned to behave appropriately so that we don't become a laughing stock. And I mean, people would shy away from answering questions in class when they're in school. People would shy away from speaking up in meetings because they don't want to look stupid. And that behavior just carries on. So I find one of the ways in which a leader can create psychological safety, and I've seen some of the great leaders do that, is by just reassuring people that, I mean, it's a cliche, but no idea is stupid or no question is silly, and actually living it up. So if there's somebody who's interrupting, or if there's somebody who's trying to gaslight the person with that idea or that thought, the leader steps in quickly, or other people step in quickly as allies and check that behavior. So then it becomes sustainable behavior. And again, the idea with allies is, I believe that people you're allying with should be the ones to call you an ally. You can't really call yourself an ally. You can behave as an ally, and once they're comfortable that yes, this person is on our side, that really, really brings psychological safety up.
I think that's critical. You just said, the important role of allyship, or being an advocate for others, and orchestrating these discussions, because that's I imagine, Katja, in these leadership discussions, I mean, having a person that's versed in a lot of different ways to create safety and different cultures and so forth. Like Shar was mentioning, I mean, some people bring their own biases in, and sometimes they're completely unaware of what's something that they may say may be offensive to others. And so having a advocate there can smooth things out and bring that to light in a more comfortable way, so that people are more aware of what they're saying and their meaning behind it. Do you agree?
I totally agree, and I also like the fact that you spoke about bias now, unconscious bias, because it's something that all of us have, right? So I have it, you have it, all of us have it. It's just human. Like, our brain cannot process that vast amount of information all the time. We put people into categories and boxes, and we try to make sense of like everything that's going on around us. It's completely human. It's completely normal. Like, everyone does it. And I think sometimes also, we have to be forgiving also with people when they make mistakes based on biases, because it just happens. We are all humans, and most important is to address it when it happens, right? To call it out, so everyone has a chance to also improve and like negotiate our different realities and figure it out together. So I think yeah, so biases are human, and we should always find ways also to use them to our advantage by just speaking about it and not judging each other. It doesn't make you a bad person if you have bias. Everyone has biases.
Well, that's a wonderful segue of what you just said. We're all human, but in the future, we're not going to be all human, right? So it's like we're right now, one of the big pushes are what's happening is the use of artificial intelligence, and us humans are going to be interfacing with these systems and in the future as leaders and so forth. And as we know, these systems are not going to be perfect when they first come out, and we're going to be responsible as leaders to identify those biases and interact or intervene as soon as possible. So, what are your thoughts on that as the future role of leaders there?
Yeah, this is a very important aspect, and I had to smile when you introduced this conversation, because I remember like from the beginning of my career, because I started in communications and I studied communications, and everyone always told us, you know, like that's the kind of job that will never be replaced by technology. And nowadays, like even in content creation and marketing, like we have all these AI tools, they're everywhere, right? And they're already doing, you know, a lot of the jobs that humans were doing in the past. So it's interesting, and I think it's moving really fast, but it's also very imperfect. So I just had a conversation with a German influencer last week, and he told me that because he's talking a lot about a genderless lifestyle and being queer, and he told me that when you Google, for example, family, what pops up typically is a white heterosexual family, but there is a ton of people that don't, you know, are not reflected in this Google search. And I think another example is also in Finnish. You have when you translate he and she, they have the same word for it. So if I'm translating it back and forth from English into Finnish, for example, and back, it turns out that different behaviors, so a sentence like person X plays football, becomes in the translation, he plays football. But when it comes to, for example, something like is cooking, then it says she is cooking, although it's the exact same word. So we see that there is bias programmed into tools, even of large successful corporations like Google. There is a lot of bias programmed into it, and I do believe that the responsibility of leaders, but also of every human, is actually to raise awareness of that and also challenge it, because the influence is only growing of technology, and we can influence it as the influence is growing, but we also need to do it and take responsibility for that. Because it's shaping our reality, right? It's shaping what every human sees in their Instagram feed. It's influencing decisions, buying decisions, but also business decisions. So we always need humans that critically challenge how AI is working.
I think that's an interesting point about AI, and we tend to assume that technology is neutral and technology doesn't have any biases, but the people who create the technology, well, unfortunately, they do have their own biases. And experiments have actually shown that big tech companies have failed with AI multiple times, and so much so that I won't name the company here, but their face recognition software could not differentiate between Oprah and Serena Williams. So the error rate for women is much higher. The error rate for Black women is exponentially higher. And it's probably because of the gender and race of a lot of the programmers, because that's how testing is done. And I mean, everywhere, you were talking about an air conditioning example earlier, seat belts and crash test dummies in car safety tests. They're designed as per the average height and weight of a human male and not a woman. Therefore, women are much more likely to die in a car accident than a man.
You're right. This is a very interesting perspective that it seems maybe also like a new challenge now in the context of technology, but no, it was always a challenge, and we have maybe also sometimes failed to create equal solutions. So good to bear that in mind, and when attacking the next one.
Oh, absolutely. And equality is one part of it. Equity is the other part. And there's this book I was reading which spoke about basic things like if you walk into an airport, you'll find an equal number of men's washrooms and women's washrooms there. Whereas they did some time and motion studies as part of an experiment, and they found that the average woman would take about 6 times as long as a man to use the facilities. Therefore, technically, to build an equitable solution, you should have 6 times as many female restrooms as male restrooms. And I mean, technically, you could say we treat everyone equally. We've got genderless washrooms, or we've got an equal number of washrooms, but that's how it is.
Interesting statistics, yeah, definitely, and how it's being used is quite important. You know, as you mentioned, it's important for us to really think about if it's the appropriate application. So yeah.
Well, hey, I was just at Red Rocks the other day, and I thought it was super cool. They actually converted all the restrooms into gender neutral restrooms, every single one. So the whole line was just men and women standing outside these restrooms going into the same facility. So that's only a year from now.
Yeah, exactly. So Sumit, let's just, I mean, you mentioned that you're currently reading a book that you've gotten this information from. Could you tell us the name of that book?
It's called Invisible Women, and it's written by a gender activist who herself has come under a bit of criticism because her view of gender is as a binary and not really along a spectrum. But criticism apart, I still think it definitely made me aware of a lot of unconscious biases. And I think every bias that you detect and hopefully work to remove is a battle won.
So perfect, a good read for sure. Now, to kind of jump back into the leadership realm and looking at having a diverse leadership team, I would love to hear a little bit more from you, Katja, and then also Shar, because I know you've helped select and create a lot of leadership teams in your practices. But first, Katja, if you could tell us about what is how should we be thinking about selecting and doing succession to ensure that we have diverse teams?
Yes, and we can actually connect here very well also our discussion about gender stereotypes and unconscious biases and leadership, because sometimes also our selection in terms of who we see leadership potential in and who not is also biased. And one thing that we are observing a lot is the so-called success likability dilemma that many women are facing. Have you heard of it?
No, tell us more, yeah.
Okay, so there are many women that struggle to be seen as both competent and likable, because if you are showing more traditionally feminine traits, like being caring, great communicator, you are taking care, emotional, and so on and so forth, you're typically liked by others, but you are not necessarily seen as competent.
Mm.
And if you are showing the opposite traits that are traditionally considered masculine traits, like being assertive, dominant, maybe also competitive, women are not typically liked for that. So there is always this conflict, like, of balancing the two. Whereas for a man, it's a different experience. So a man can combine both, because also when he is dominant, he can still be liked by people, to be in charge, for example. And this is one of the challenges that many people also in our Wavemakers community are navigating. And basically it only exists because our understanding of leadership or professional success even is biased by, you know, what we know from the past and the present. And there were typically more male leaders that were typically showing more traditionally male characteristics, although I also don't want to generalize, because also every man is different, no, every woman is different, every non-binary person is different. But this is something where we have a biased image of leadership, although research has proven the opposite. Research has proven that both the typically feminine traits and the typically male traits are all relevant for leadership. So we are all, you know, doing a good job also if we're keeping ourselves balanced and taking in these different perspectives. But one is more favored than the other. And then we have these outdated gender stereotypes sometimes that make us call a woman, for example, and I don't know if you are allowed to curse in an American webinar, but, you know, we are giving women sometimes, calling them bad names if they are standing up for themselves, if they are very loud and so on and so forth, because they are not always likable when they do it, although it can make them successful.
Yeah, so and Shar, I know that you were telling us a few things earlier in the session about how, you know, you were in this position and where there was stereotypes and so forth that you had to deal with. And can you tell us a little bit more about that and how that you rose above those stereotypes and also recruited diverse teams for your companies?
Yeah, I definitely could give you many stories of where I've been kind of in that category of sitting in the executive boardroom and trying to pretend that I was a masculine figure when really all I wanted to do was cry, which is also where you're not supposed to do that. But yeah, I've had many a battle. I always consider myself a Joan of Arc, and really stand up for diversity and inclusion, even for every level of the organization. You know, it is difficult because I've literally, you know, had those patriarchal or patriarch type conversations where it's kind of like men are from Mars, women are from Venus on steroids. I mean, seriously, we could not come to any mutual understanding or mutual discussion around talent management strategy, myself and my male vice president. No matter what I would say, it was just a yin and yang. Ultimately, I found out that individual had a lot of allegations against him for discrimination. But so with my own company, I've definitely wanted to change the way we led. And with my company, I mean, I really valued the feminine energy or the diverse perspectives of people with disabilities or individuals that came from a different background, religiously, race, everything. And really, we found that we capitalized on that because since we're healthcare advocates in one of my companies, our community is very diverse. Our community is all wanting to talk to somebody that can really relate and not be over talking them, interrupting them, judging based on all of those factors. And actually, we found with a more diverse workforce with all different aspects, our organization thrived because we really forced that with our organization. So I think that it was all my learnings over those years of what not to be as an employer, what not to do as an employer to have this inclusivity type of mindset and positive psychology mindset. So yeah, it's been quite the journey. Now, if I could take my learnings and help other companies learn from what I've done with my company, that'd be great. But I have to get back on Mars and Venus, right? And be able to communicate. Because it's hard, I think, to get buy-in if a company doesn't really understand.
And I think this is also a great example of authentic leadership, by the way, you know, that you are sharing this story with us and with the world out there. in a very vulnerable, authentic manner. And I feel like that's what inspires people, right? And this is when they also feel seen and encouraged to, you know, also find their own way of doing things. So I really enjoyed listening to this anecdote.
Well, you know, one of my executives was very much, I need ideas. We need ideas to increase productivity. So he'd go around the boardroom table and everybody would come up with their ideas. But every time somebody brought up something, I call it the invisible bazooka gun. It was like bringing up the invisible, you know, bazooka gun, shoot your idea down as soon as it comes out of your mouth, to the point where everyone was so stagnated and afraid to say anything or have any out of the box thinking or anything that that president did not want to hear. And that's very stifling. Now, I was 27 years old when that particular experience happened. And it was shocking to me because I thought, well, this is a professional HR environment. I would never think that you'd have somebody shooting down every single progressive idea I had or anybody in the room had. But it was definitely an eye opener. So when you talk about the young professionals coming into the workplace, it's shocking, quite frankly, to realize that you have to adjust and adapt to some not healthy leadership. And it's not just an old-fashioned leadership too. It could be from anybody, but it's very, you go home, I call it the white knuckle syndrome, when you're driving home from work and you're looking at your knuckles because they're so white, because you're like, I can't stand working with so-and-so, you know what I mean? And then you sit there and imagine, what could I have said differently so he'd accept my idea, you know? So having your resource would be fantastic to kind of help navigate through those waters, and having a sounding board, it sounds like to me. So what does a typical consultation look like for you? I mean, do you meet with individuals? Do you work with leadership teams? What's your typical audience or customer that you would support?
Yeah, interesting. So we do none of that. So it's really like a community and learning platform where we bring groups of people together. So at Wavemakers, we are, yeah, I would say really good at cohort-based learning. So we are having cohorts of our leadership program 4 times a year. And that's when we bring like-minded people together that are all in a similar stage, you know, of like kind of navigating these ups and downs that you were just describing, and maybe sometimes, you know, doubting themselves and thinking they should maybe just give up and do something else instead. We talk a lot about quiet quitting these days, right? But I think that's not an option. Like you have dreams, you have goals, you want to achieve something, you want to create an impact, you want your voice to be heard. And even if the environment is sometimes imperfect, there are ways of making it happen if you have the right support structures and some maybe tools and skills in order to deal with it. And those are also some of the tools and skills that I think many of us would love to have had, like when we were starting our careers. So those are exactly the ones that we are sharing now with these younger professionals. So it's cohort-based learning. We have knowledge sharing sessions. We also have coaching groups where they go through exercises, you know, some self-reflection, but also practicing the new skills and new tools. Because when it comes to learning and development, I think it's only 10% that comes really from formal knowledge, and much more is the interaction with people, the experimentation, really trying things out for yourself. And that's sometimes hard, especially if people are not in the C-level yet. So they're still in different positions. So it's really tough to practice leadership skills. And this is kind of where we provide this bubble, the safe space where they can try it out first in a protected space, but then also leave their comfort zone every week of the 6-week program a little bit to make those baby steps also in their real work environment. But then also have the support system where they can come back and share their experience, like how it went. And that's where we've seen like massive growth, actually personal and professional growth, with people getting new positions and making a ton of progress in their career. But also people just having a different standing and a pride after the program of who they are and how they can actually make an impact without changing who they are, which is, I think, the most beautiful thing about it.
That's great. So could you share with us what are the key themes that participants in your programs are are feeling right now? What are they most concerned about when they enter your program?
Yeah. So they are most concerned about often themselves. So imposter syndrome is a big topic, especially, you know, like the influence of social media is getting stronger and stronger. So this unfair comparison between yourself and others is something that has only increased, I think, over the past years. You see like all your peers from university are like progressing on LinkedIn. Everyone is only sharing their successes. No one is speaking about failures or things that don't work out. So a lot of people are experiencing imposter syndrome, but obviously also uncertainty. So we have a war now in Europe, we have the climate crisis all over the world. So there are also a lot of worries that that people have, young professionals have, a lot of things to navigate. And this is also where sometimes the personal and professional lives come together, right? So if you're not feeling well, or if you're feeling insecure and uncertain about many things, this is also something that reflects in our professional reality. So I think these are like two of the main themes, combined with one very interesting one we hear a lot, the struggle to communicate with dominant personalities, for example, to make your voice heard. And this seems to be also a generational clash, because the younger generations, so Gen Z, also partly millennials, have a great emphasis on like fulfillment and making an impact and wanting to use their voice and change things. But sometimes, especially in more traditional organizations, I feel like they're running against walls and they're not really being heard. So this is also where we are, where we are helping them actually take responsibility, because that's also what the organizations want, right? They want engaged employees that feel responsible, but also find a way to make their voice heard in a constructive manner, right? You don't want to turn it into a negativity, like this is the organization, or they're stupid bosses and here I am. No, you want an optimism, you want a collaboration across generations, genders, everything. And this is something that we also teach in the program. So people, you know, are proud to have a new, different perspective, but at the same time also find ways to arrange that in a constructive manner with their environment, so that it can actually drive results also for the organizations.
Well,
Do you think that there's an awareness? I'm sorry. Do you think there's an awareness, I think, by the younger generations or generations coming into the workforce? Do you think there's an awareness that there is this bias in the organization? Do you find that it's a real surprise when they get in the organization and find out these behaviors happen? What's your experience with that?
I think it's a surprise, because many young professionals, they get out of university and they think they can do anything. So we see a lot of energy and ideas, and also eagerness to learn. But then sometimes when it's not so easy for them to actually create tangible outcomes, there's a frustration. And this is also something that can lead sometimes into the direction of quiet quitting. And with quiet quitting, I think there are always different interpretations. It can be, you know, to set healthy boundaries, and that's like perfectly fine. But it can also be the interpretation of like not caring about your job anymore and doing as little as possible. And that's really not okay. That's not okay for the employers, also not fulfilling for the individual. So then everyone is unhappy. It's not a fruitful professional relationship. And I think this is something that we are definitely addressing and trying to solve, because the biases and all of these topics are more an education that needs to happen. So individuals understand what's going on, that it's not against them personally, that it's not about them now having to quietly quit because there is no other way. No, you can solve it through communication and making progress together with other people. And this is, I would say it sometimes comes as a surprise and sometimes misinterpreted, taken personally, taken as a discouragement, and that's what we don't want.
One other thing that I just want to revisit on that you mentioned is you know, having an impact in organizations. So a lot of leaders out there desperately want to see change. I mean, the change is happening so fast in society as a overall, and some companies simply are lagging behind. And leaders are struggling to make an impact and to influence their colleagues and other leaders and senior leaders to change practices. And so when we're in the realm of diversity and inclusion and ensuring that we're having more authenticity, what are the best ways that you can suggest for leaders out there to encourage this change?
Yeah, I think authenticity was already a good keyword, because when it comes to change, and change is just pushed in a controlling way, in a top-down manner, then people get scared, like something is taken away from me here, something negative is happening. But change can also be something, can be new opportunities, can be something playful to experiment with, to grow, to innovate. And I think this is where it also needs a very honest, authentic communication, and also the human element, because after all, we're all humans at work. Every leader is a human, every employee is a human. We are all getting scared if too many things happen at the same time, and we don't know where the change is going. But at the same time, if there's transparency, if there's openness, if there's strong relationship, trust, very important keyword as well, companies can also go through hard times together. And this is where I think also we see great examples of leaders also changing their practices, right? And showing also when sometimes they don't have all the answers. Sometimes there are doubts and uncertainties. And this is something that we also see can build relationships and bonds and understanding, because it's not this you versus I, but it's us figuring it out together. And leaders who are embracing this also have better chances to really go through it together with the organization and not lose people on the way.
Right. Well, Katja, this has been a great conversation. I know we're quickly coming to the top of the hour here, so I want to encourage any questions from our audience to come on in, and so we can ask Katja directly. But as we're waiting for those, I'd like to bring everybody as awareness to our speaker next week on the People Strategy Forum. We're going to have Owen, and he's an expert on processes and procedures and so forth. And so one of the big things that's going on right now in businesses is the pace of change, as we've been talking about, and also bringing on people at a faster rate and getting them ramped up in the organization and trained so that they can be productive and can start contributing as fast as possible. Because there's been a lot of churn in the marketplace, right? People are switching jobs and so forth. And so I think that Owen's discussion can bring a lot of effectiveness to companies that are seeing a lot of turnover and these rapid environments. So please join us next week on the People Strategy Forum for that. All right. So back to you, Katja. I mean, so for our listeners right now that want to learn more about your leadership programs and how to participate and perhaps just understanding the different models that you have, how would they get a hold of you and learn more about that?
Yes, I shared links to the Wavemakers website and also my LinkedIn profile. So LinkedIn is always the fastest way to get in touch with me directly, and I always love inspiring conversations. So feel free to just contact me, check out the Wavemakers website. And I also wanted to share that we have a next leadership program starting on the 27th of October. So if you know a talented individual that you think is on the right way to actually grow into leadership or make more impact as a leader, applications are open, and we are also excited to really bring together people again from all over the world. And then I'm happy to come back at some point and share what came out of that cohort, but I'm already excited to make it happen. Maybe I'll see some familiar faces there.
Well, that's great. Well, I have to say, I really wish that I found you, Katja, when I was that 27-year-old in the bazooka gun room. It would have been really helpful because it's very lonely, I think, when you feel like you're in that situation and you don't have someone to talk to or a group of peers to really brainstorm. And I think that a lot of us, particularly going up the ladder, the career ladder, are so afraid to do or say something wrong that will disrupt our career strategy. So this is wonderful. I think it's a fantastic thing, and I look forward to hearing more about it.
Thanks so much.
Great.
And I think the other exciting part about this, you know, program that you offer is just, it's making the time, it's making the space, the dedicated time to actually really craft, you know, really work on the things you want. Because otherwise, there's just only so many hours in a day. And so that's what I think is intriguing about your program. And it's just like an investment, you know, for people to be able to make in themselves, to do a program like that, be surrounded, be in a safe spot, you know. Hey, I always think about the Olympians, you know, they practice with foam mats so they can do all their tumbles and land on a safe spot. And we need that as professionals too. You know, we need a place where we are not afraid to take the leap and land in a soft spot and, you know, not get hurt and be able to pick ourselves up and try it again. And I think that's what your program offers. That's so intriguing.
Great analogy, Wendy. That's great. Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Katja, for joining us here on the People Strategy Forum. It's been a wonderful conversation.
I have one more question for Katja, actually, because you know she's got so much she can share. So maybe we'll get to have her back sometime. But you know, just thinking again, if there was like one thing you could send us out with, you know, you talk a lot about just, you know, being that leader, finding that leader within, like whether you're in that kind of role or not. And I was just curious, like if there's one thing you could send us out with that we could think about this week in terms of becoming, you know, better leaders ourselves.
Yes. So I would like to maybe revisit the title we chose for the session, which is, you know, the courage also to take to find your own path. And I think courage is always like such a big word, you know, it means like, oh, something, you know, I have to change completely or take this huge leap. And I don't think that's it, but courage are like the micro decisions, like every single day that we do in order to invest in our own growth, progress in our career, be better leaders, be better family members, friends, whatever it is. So there are like mini micro decisions that we make every day. And that over time can be the courageous big move also that makes us amazing, inspiring leaders that leave a great legacy behind. So courage in small steps, step by step. So I fully agree also with what you said, Wendy, about the time investment that everyone should make in themselves and also integrate, not only be busy with our everyday work, but also, you know, with your growth as a leader. So building that courage over time, making great impact.
All right, courage, it's the word of the week.
For sure. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us this week on the People Strategy Forum. It's been a wonderful conversation, and looking forward to our next week here in the discussion. So thank you very much, Katja.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.